Okay, so good morning. Today's class is going to be one of those, we'll learn some stuff first and then we'll go do the yoga. So I will talk to you today about kyphosis. So that's sometimes known as like the hunchback kind of situation that can sometimes happen. So I will share my screen, show you some pictures. So this is blurry, but I think we get the general gist of it. A normal spine does have a natural curve. It goes this way in the neck, and then it goes this way in the upper back, and then it goes this way in the lower back. But what can sometimes happen is a really pronounced kind of hunchback over here. And the main cause of this, I mean, there's different causes. It could be congenital, it could be, from birth, or it could be genetic. But the main cause is the nuchal ligament. So there's a ligament that runs from the base of the skull here all the way to the top of the back, so the bottom of the neck, the full length of the neck. And when it shortens over time from a slouching and sitting down and that sort of thing, and just age as well, then it just shortens it, and then it pulls everything upwards like this. So what we want to do is lengthen. So you can sort of see right from here, hopefully you can see my cursor too, all the way to here. That's quite a long distance. And then from here to here is much shorter. So that is the first one I wanted to show you. And then the next one is the actual nuchal ligament and where it runs. And as you can see here, it just sort of illustrates that yes, it's the base of the spine right here, and then it runs, it's like a big thick band all the way here. So if this shortens, it just sort of pulls this whole part up. And here's the facing the back, where you can just sort of see how long it actually is, which I find fascinating. And just a couple different views here. So it's quite a thick band. So ligaments are a little bit more difficult to stretch, but we're going to do that today with, and then I'll change my document we're looking at here to a photo over here. Plow pose. So here's me doing plow pose, and I just wanted to show you, I think it's funny that I want to show you how I'm doing this wrong. Well, not wrong, but my nuchal ligament is not as long as it should be. So if you sort of look really close, my chin is not touching my chest. And eventually it will, but we want to be super careful with this pose because we are stretching the neck. So this is one that I'm currently working on. And eventually, how do we get the chin to touch the chest? Well, the head has to stay neutral. And then what we do is, you can see a curve in my back still. What we're trying to do is we're not trying to curve and round the back like so. We're trying to actually lengthen. So when we're in this pose, think of the sit bones reaching way up high so that your back is eventually flat. But at first, it does feel like a whole big stretch right from the tailbone all the way to the base of the skull. So that's eventually, let's see, do I have another photo here of if we can't do this? This wasn't the one I was going to show. Let's see. That's okay. If you catch the hips, you can place a block beneath the feet or a couch, or you could just have the legs up. It's nice to have them supported on something, on a block or a couch or something, but they don't have to be all the way to the ground. So the other thing I wanted to mention with props, I have my head on the floor, but a blanket beneath the shoulders. So this is for if this pose is challenging and maybe your nuchal ligament isn't very long either. So what this blanket beneath the shoulders does is shortens the distance needed or the length needed for that nuchal ligament. So what I will do is, I have enough length in my nuchal ligament. I like to have a blanket beneath the whole pose because it's sort of, when you're lying down, the bones of the back sometimes feel a little bit that kind of bruising sensation that I want to avoid. So I'll put mine beneath the head, but if you want it to help the pose, don't place the head on the blanket, place it beneath just the shoulders. When we're lengthening that nuchal ligament, I just wrote down 3 notes. So 1, the nuchal ligament we lengthen with plow pose. That's the most beneficial thing we can do for kyphosis on our own. There is surgery that you can do, but it's nice to avoid that. So we'll do preventative today, and also if you do have a bit of it, trying to correct it. So the second thing that helps is traction. So really trying to, instead of, I'm going to show you, and you can see mine a little bit. It's not as long as it should be, so I do a little bit of this. And when I sit at my desk, I do this a lot. I really do. So oftentimes I will think, maybe it's not as oftentimes as I want it to be, I will think, oh yeah, right, lengthening. And I actually get a little bit of a popping and cracking because it lengthens and I don't do it as often as I should. So lifting up tall when I'm at my desk, you know, thinking of shoulders down and lengthening the crown of the head towards the ceiling. So traction, but how do we do traction all the time? It actually feels like it fatigues the neck, which is good. It's actually good. We want to get the neck stronger. So traction is just that, finding space between each vertebra, and then we want to maintain that traction with strength. So we need to actually create a stronger neck. So that is the second most helpful thing to avoid kyphosis. The third thing that can help is general mobility from the base of the skull, I like to think of it like from my eyebrows, to basically the bottom of the ribs. And if we have general mobility, then it allows the traction to happen easier. So we actually need less strength to create that traction. Okay, so lengthen nuchal ligament with plow pose and other poses, but mostly plow pose. That's our most important pose. Number 2, traction with strength. And number 3, general mobility to help the traction. So we'll inhale and gently lower the belly, arch the back, and lift the chin. And on the exhale, scoop the belly in, curving and rounding the spine, and then tuck the chin. And again, inhale, drop the belly, arch the back, lift the chin. And exhale, curving and rounding, and tucking the chin. Just a couple more. Inhale, drop the belly, arch the back, lift the chin. Exhale, curving and rounding, and tucking the chin. One more. Inhale, arch the back, lift the chin. And exhale, curving and rounding, tucking the chin. And inhale to neutral. Since we're already on hands and knees, I'm actually going to place something beneath my knees for a little bit of cushion. My knees are wimpy, and that's okay. So from here, I've heard this called bird dog. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's not an actual yoga pose. So it's just a conditioning exercise. We'll extend the left leg behind us and lift the leg. So it's not a high lift. It's just parallel to the floor, and we're trying to not arch the back, but pull the belly in, and you can see I'm sort of cheating. We want to keep the hips square to the ground. Lengthening, so that traction we talked about, lengthening the spine, feel space between each vertebra, and then with the belly scooped in, raise the right arm, palm facing in, thumb up, and then keep the shoulders from tipping in as well. So shoulders are square both towards the floor and also towards the front of our mat. So our right shoulder wants to move forward, don't let it, draw the right shoulder back, but lengthening the spine, reaching, lengthening, and keep the neck long. So you might notice a little bit of fatigue in the neck. This is good. And in the back. So we're strengthening the whole back body and getting warmed up at the same time. And then we'll put it all down, back to hands and knees if you need a little rest. Maybe sitting back onto the heels. And then back up through hands and knees, and we'll do the other side. So we'll extend the right leg behind, not too high. Double check, we want the hips square as possible towards the ground, and also not letting that right hip go back. So square to the front of the mat and also square to the floor. Once you're stabilized, extend the left arm forward, same thing. So the thumb is pointing up and the shoulders are square to the floor and to the front of the mat. Trying not to arch the back, but rather pull the belly in and lengthening. So find as much space as you can from the crown of the head to the tip of the tailbone, and also from the fingertips to the toes, lengthening, reaching, stretching. And then put it back down, and then maybe lower the hips back down, giving yourself a little bit of a break. And then from here, we'll head onto our belly. I actually didn't have this as part of my lesson plan for the day, but may as well, just so that we know all the poses that can help build the back strength. So from hands and knees, we'll lower down to the floor. Shalabhasana locust pose. So this wasn't on my class plan for today, but it is very helpful. So on our bellies, squeeze the legs together, point the toes, belly scoops in, arms along your sides, palms facing up, and then peel the chest off the floor, and then lengthening through the legs so that the legs come up off the floor, including the knees, but keep the legs straight, and then the fingertips are reaching towards the back wall and holding here. So this one is very, very good for kyphosis. Breathing. And then we'll put it all down. From here, let's head up to a little bit of a stretch. Up to Sphinx pose, Naravirālasana, but a yin style. So with the forearms parallel to each other, fingers pointing forward, just relax through the legs. So everything's relaxed. And what we're trying to do is bend through the spine, especially the mid-back, and melting it forward. And just hanging out here for a bit. Just encouraging our spine to move in the opposite direction. Fun fact, when we're doing back bending, it tends to look like we're not bending the upper back at all, and it's all happening in the lower back. But remember, we do have a natural kind of a hunch a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit forward in that upper back region. So when we bend backwards, it actually, your back has to pass through straight first before you get any back bend, whereas our lower back has a natural curve in a back bend. So we don't want too much of that low back bend to start with, but it already has a head start. So when we do a back bend, the low back will absolutely look like it's doing more, even though it's not necessarily. We want to focus on a full length of the spine back bend. Which is sometimes, I remember I used to look at pictures and think, my upper back's not bending at all. It's really far behind my back, my low back. And it wasn't until I really sat down and thought about it that actually that's normal. And let's relax, so stacking the forearms and placing the forehead onto the forearms. And then from here, we're going to work a little bit. So we have two exercises, one called T's and one called Y's. And if you've been with me for a while, you've done these many times before, and they're my favorite. So what I'll do is I'll put my 2-minute timer on, and just keep in mind you can always take breaks. So we're working up to 2 minutes. The first one is easier. The T's are easier than the Y's, but both are equally as fun. So in our T's, I'll get our timer started before I explain it. So we're still on the floor, belly scooping in, forehead to the floor, arms out to the sides, but I like to take a peek at my arms to make sure they're out to the sides, not too far forward or too far back, right straight out from the shoulders. And then forehead or chin on the floor, or nose. Actually, nose is probably the straightest. It's going to be the most uncomfortable position. That'll probably be the best. Then, almost like you're trying to flatten out the low back, pull the belly in, tuck the tailbone under. And then shoulders down away from the ears, lift the arms up. So they don't have to go high. And you just go up and up and up and up and keep going. Whenever you need to take a break, feel free to lower the arms, take a little break. You can even break in child's pose. And then jump back in when you can. But every time we come back into the exercise, double check that your arms are straight out to the sides, because we want the pose to be very, very immaculate in the alignment. It's better that we do smaller movements, but with very good alignment, than to try to deepen the exercise without having good alignment. So shoulders are down, belly scoops in. And with my nose to the mat, I'm using my neck muscles too. So we often think, ow, this hurts my neck. But if it's a dull ache, a little bit of a burning, this is strengthening and it's good for us. If you need a break, absolutely. But just know that that's your neck getting stronger. If it's sharp stabbing pain, that we absolutely need to stop and then go contact your primary care person. But if it's that dull ache, that is a good thing. It's gaining strength. Almost done. Last 5 seconds. And relax. And then let's head up and back to child's pose. I feel that in my shoulders, in my neck, in my upper back. And I started to really love that feeling because it makes me aware that I'm working and getting stronger. And we'll just hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Before we head into our Ys, we'll do a stretch. So we'll either repeat Naravirlasana, Sphinx pose, or we'll head into a little bit deeper pose. So we'll lower all the way to our bellies. And we'll start in Naravirlasana, Sphinx pose, so propping up onto the forearms. If this isn't a stretch for you though, if this is no longer stretching, then we press into the palms and straighten through the arms. And then really thinking of the mid-back sinking, so the heart is sinking and melting forward. And we hold. If you need to take a break, take a break. Otherwise, hold, hold, hold. I've got my timer on. And then if this isn't stretching enough, you can go into full cobra and hold. Bring the hands back. And you can adjust how deep you want that back bend by how far the hands are away from you. So the further the hands are away from you forward, the less intense the stretch will be. The closer they are to your ribs or even your hips, the more intense the stretch will be. So we want it to be not intense for us. We want it to be nice and gentle. And same thing again, if you need to take a break, but we're trying to encourage the spine to bend in the opposite position. So remember, especially the upper back. So it'll pass through neutral and then bend back. The other thing that this helps with is bone density. So feeling that compression in the spine. Sometimes I remember I definitely used to think, uh-oh, I feel my low back. I feel this hurts my low back. But again, if it's a dull ache, that's good. That's compression. And that's your back getting stronger. And I really wish someone had told me that years and years ago, because I avoided a lot of opportunities for flexibility and strength and increasing bone density. But as they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And then we'll slowly, slowly release. And then we'll press up and back to child's pose, taking your time. And just allow the spine to soften. And we'll rest here for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll come back up through hands and knees. And once again, onto our bellies for our Ys. So lowering down. This one is a lot more awkward than the Ts. I don't know if I can do the full 2 minutes without any rest, but that is okay. So we want our arms in like you're about to sing YMCA with the hand movements. And the thumbs are pointing up. I'll get our timer started. Nose to the mat. Same. So belly scoops in, almost like you're trying to tuck the tailbone under, and then lift the arms up and up. So this one, you'll probably notice there isn't as much range of motion here. That's normal for humans. Keep the belly scooped in, keep the neck long, keep the shoulders down. So even though it's difficult, just make smaller movements. So even if the arms go all the way down to the floor and then they go up just a half an inch, that's okay. Keep going. Breaking whenever you need to, but make sure the alignment is good. And what we mean by that is the neck is long, the shoulders are down, tailbone is tucked under, belly scoops in, and just keep repeating that. So shoulders down, belly scoops in, and the neck is long. Taking rest when you need. And jumping in when you can. Getting back to that good alignment. Side note, this is the best one for back strength and to avoid that hunchback. Of all the exercises we'll do today, this is the most effective. Last maybe 15 seconds or so. I've got a sound timer. I don't exactly know. And relax. Find a child's pose. Oh. Never gets old. Always feels intense, which is good. It means we're getting stronger. Resting in child's pose for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. From here, we'll come up through hands and knees and prepare for puppy dog pose. Anahatasana, the direct translation is heart chakra pose. So for this one, I'm going to scooch to the back of my mat in hands and knees position, and then walk the hands forward, but keep the hips right above the knees. And then we reach the heart down towards the mat until we feel a stretch in the shoulders. You can rest the forehead on the floor, or if you're not feeling a stretch there, you could rest the chin on the floor. And we're trying to get our chest all the way to the floor. So either hold here and then taking breaks whenever you need to, because it is an awkward pose to hold, or if that's not stretching at all, we can head into a downward facing dog, but bend the knees. So we're not trying to stretch the backs of the legs, although it feels nice, I can't help it. But we want to bend through the knees and really reach the shoulders. So try to stretch the shoulders, reach the heart towards the feet. Shoulders down away from the ears. Feeling that stretch in the shoulders. We're not in this one as long as the others. And then slowly come back to hands and knees, whatever variation you were in. And then we'll come back to a seated position. So one of the things that I like to do to avoid that hunchback is to stretch everything in the area. We've talked about this before, how everything is connected. So we talk about things like referral pain, which just means that one part of your body is affected and another part will feel it because it'll pull on that or something like that. So this is why, even though we're targeting the mid-back for natural neutral spine, I like to stretch the shoulders as well because it's all connected, right? If you've got super tight shoulders, it might cause the slouching. So we'll head into Gomukhasana arms, cow face arms. We'll start with one at a time. Right arm goes up, heading back. Left hand guides that right elbow eventually behind the head and trying to get the fingertips running down the back. It'll tend to want to go out to the side, but try to get the hand down the back. And then eventually lifting the chin. So notice how that's a doozy of a stretch. Super fun, especially if the elbow is right behind the head. And breathing deep. This is actually a stretch that people should do every day. I don't, but I do try to get this one in at least once a week for my own personal practice. Twice is better. That's literally twice as much, twice as often. And then slowly, slowly release, especially if you have tight shoulders like I do. So that one, naturally after that one, I like to hunch and kind of go, oh. So shaking it off, other side. Left arm goes up, heading back. So same thing, you can see how naturally my hand is out to the side, my elbow's way out to the side. I'm trying to guide my elbow behind my head gently. And then guide the fingertips down the back. And then eventually lifting the chin. Getting a little bit deeper, if you are quite body aware, I can tell that I'm a little bit dehydrated. So I've had maybe either a little bit too much alcohol or caffeinated products, so soda or pop or coffee or even decaf coffee, and not quite enough water or electrolytes. So the way I can feel that is my muscles feel a little bit ropey, and I don't know how else to explain it. It feels like a little bit of an uneven stretch, and that's the best way I can describe it. So it's nice to try to check in with how you're feeling. A lot of us, when we pop into a stretch, we just think about our day. What do I do next? What am I doing after yoga? What did I do yesterday? Oh, remember when I did that thing? Right? Our mind wanders. But it's really good if you can focus on the stretch. What does the stretch feel like? Does it feel the same or different than it did last time? And if it feels different, how does it feel different? Does it feel the same as the other side? Is one side tight? Like, these are all the things to just check in with when we're in a stretch. Let's slowly come on out. So I noticed that I'm feeling a little bit dehydrated, but I actually feel better than yesterday, which is also interesting. So I did focus a little bit on drinking a little bit more water, a little bit more electrolytes, and I'm reaching for my yoga strap. So we'll do the bottom arm for Gomukhasana. I like using a strap for this. You don't have to, but it helps me. So I'm going to do my left arm first because it's the easiest for me. If you're right-handed, your left arm will be more flexible. So clasping onto the strap with the left arm behind you, and then the strap comes up and over the right shoulder. So what we're trying to do is get the back of the hand eventually between the shoulder blades. So it works better with my left arm because it's more flexible than my right. And then once I've got it into the full position, then drawing the shoulder and elbow back, lifting up tall, so that good posture, that traction that we were talking about earlier, lifting and lengthening as we draw the elbow and shoulder back, 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 back. So this one feels fairly intense for me. I have to make sure that I check in with this one for sure, almost continuously, that I'm not drawing the shoulder back too far, too fast, too much. Gentle stretch. If you're not able to take full deep breaths, you're in it too far. So that's a good indicator. Couple deep breaths, just checking in. How is everything feeling? We are looking for gentle, gentle stretch. And then slowly, slowly release. And again, for the shoulders, I have to move really, really, really slow. We'll switch sides here. I'm moving at a snail's pace, but as fast as I can go. So now I'm noticing with my right arm, the back of my hand isn't quite in between the shoulder blades, and that's okay, right? We're just getting it there as close as possible. And once you're all set up, then we draw the shoulder and the elbow back, back, back. So super gentle, lifting up tall. And we hold. So because we're holding for a little bit longer, then we might hold an average stretch in yoga. We want to make sure that it's even more gentle. So the longer you hold something, the more gentle you want to feel that stretch. And in our inner dialogue too, I like to use words that assist the pose. So for example, instead of thinking stretch, I like to think encouraging to open. And I can feel my muscles soften when I use those types of words. Encourage openness, allowing greater range of motion, allowing mobility. And then slowly, slowly release. Oh, that feels so much better. If we were actually focusing on Gomukhasana, we would do the full position of the arms, both top and bottom, but we're just trying to get everything loosened. So we'll move on to one of my favorite stretches. I like a blanket for this one. So we're on our bellies. It is an awkward one, but it feels amazing. So this is for the outside of the arm. And what we're doing is we'll lie on our bellies, and it's this stretch, but on our bellies. And we'll hold for 2 minutes. So we'll lower down and then place the right arm beneath us. So right arm goes across, palm facing up. Oh, can I reach my timer? Here we go. And then we're trying to eventually have the shoulders square and then lying right on top of the arm. So for me, I can't quite do it right at first, but it opens up really quickly. It's kind of fun. So melting into it, trying to feel the outside of the shoulder, but very gently. Last little bit here. We're trying to find stillness, which I am not very successful at yet. So trying to be still. I'm a fidgeter. Let's slowly, slowly come on out. Oh, it feels so amazing after that one. I love how my shoulders feel after that one. Other side. Get our timer going before I put my arm in its position. We're over the halfway point. See if you can soften even more. And then slowly, slowly come on up. Okay. Grunting is allowed in yoga, just so you know. And for our most important pose, Halasana plow pose. So we lay back. I've got my blanket all ready how I want it. And we lie back. And then just lying on our back, remembering your options. So if you don't want to do the pose at all, we just lift the legs up. And this is a really nice pose just to hang out here for a bit. If you want to go a little bit, then a little bit of momentum, catch the hips. And then place the feet on maybe a couch behind you or a block. And if you want to go all the way in, lowering the toes behind you. And we hang out here for a bit. So remembering that this is a yin style posture and that we're aiming to stretch that nuchal ligament. And that means we want to keep it super gentle. So nice and easy. And whenever you do feel you need to come out, just try to come out slowly. Otherwise, hanging out here. You can change your arm position. I like my arms above my head, towards my feet, just to help with the balance. You can also explore bending through the knees. That's another variation. I like to oscillate back and forth, straightening through the legs. But when I move in this posture, I like to move really, really slowly. Because we are dealing with the neck, so being extra cautious. And once you get settled in, just closing the eyes. And keep checking in with the body. And of course, remembering you can come out at any time. And when you do, if you do come out early, just know that it's not early for you and you're honoring your body. And then just hang out with neutral spine. So if you roll all the way out, bend the knees and place the feet on the floor, and just hang out there for a bit. Otherwise, staying in Halasana plow pose, or even bending the knees. That one's Karnapidasana. Just a slight variation. And to come out, moving very, very slowly. I like to use my arms as landing gears, so I'm going to place my palms facing down, fingers away from the head, alongside the body, and then belly scoops in slowly, 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 and then bend the knees, maybe hug them into the chest, or place the feet on the floor. And just relax here for a little bit. I always feel like my spine feels a little strange afterwards, so you can start by rolling the head gently from side to side. And then we'll just hang on here just a little bit longer, and I'll just say that hold times for this pose, you want to start with a minute and build up from there until eventually you can hold for 5 minutes or even more. And it's really, once you start practicing this posture, it's really nice to hold it for 5 minutes. So we'll just hang on to neutral spine here for just a few more moments, couple deep breaths. For 1, and 2, and just allow your spine to feel heavy into the floor. One more little roll from side to side of the head. And that was Halasana plow pose. So our last pose that we'll do is lying down, and it's twisted roots. So it's for our spine. It's a nice supine spinal twist, and twisted roots is the most intense variation. There's also a one-legged twist or two-legged twist, whichever one is in your practice. Feel free to go ahead and get situated. We'll lay all the way back. My timer going. So arms out to a T position, palms facing down. We'll lift and scooch the hips to the right and then send either both knees to the left or extend the bottom leg straight so that you've got a one-legged twist, or cross the right leg all the way over the left in the twisted roots variation. And just be sure that both shoulders are firmly on the floor to protect the low back and the right shoulder. While we're in, it's a little bit tricky to see on your own, but we want our top leg, so the thigh bone, to be at least perpendicular to our body, if not slightly up. So we don't want the knee to be heading down towards the feet. We want the knee to be at least straight out to the side or slightly up towards the left elbow, specifically to target the mid-back. So if we were to draw the knees downward, you would notice that the stretch is happening more in the low back. And we want to really target that mid-back, right where that hunchback tends to be. Base of the hunchback tends to be right in the middle of the back. And then scoop the belly in. Press the low back into the floor. And then unraveling and winding, we'll square everything up and then hug both knees into the chest and gently rock side to side for Apanasana. And then preparing for the other side. So arms in a T position, palms facing down, feet to the floor, lift and scooch the hips over to the left, and then the knee or knees over to the right. Just doing the same variation on that second side. In our last few moments, see if you can melt even more. And scoop the belly in, pressing the low back into the floor. Unravel, unwind, and then hug both knees in. Gently rocking side to side. And then releasing the feet to the floor. Roll over to the right side, pausing there for a moment. And slowly press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seated position. Lifting up nice and tall. Just one last stretch for the neck. We'll do some head circles. So we'll tilt right ear to right shoulder, lifting up nice and tall. And then tucking the chin, left to left, and all the way around. We'll just do 2 more. So nice and slow at your own pace. And last one, just really feeling that full range of motion of the neck. And then floating the head to neutral and other direction. Left to left, tucking the chin, right to right, and around. And 2 more, nice and slow. And then float the head to neutral. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale, closing the eyes. And just take those final moments to thank yourself for showing up to your practice today and taking care of you. And slowly open the eyes. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time, and I hope you have a really good rest of your day. Bye for now.